content warning for mentions of suicide, grooming, dismemberment, rape, and a number of dangerous content creators. There's also death wishes, intimidation, and yelling. This is Blazing Larvesta speaking. If you're watching this, I'm sure you're aware of the incident that happened at the end of July regarding several content creators, the most important of which being Larvesta, Keyblade Master, and BlazinHope, aka Tippy. This situation, to put it lightly, has put a lot of people on edge, especially in the slideshow commentary community. If you're wondering why August and September of this year ended up being dry months in terms of content, that's why. I certainly wasn't dead. I was still posting on Twitter and talking on Discord, but I didn't feel comfortable putting out anything on my channel until I got this statement put out, else I'd come off as dismissive of the whole thing. I guess I am pretty late to the party, especially given a user named Ray Kohai was also re-exposed for heavily abhorrent behavior earlier this month, but that's neither here nor there, and I do still feel my situation is relevant, all things considered. To be clear though, I won't be discussing what most other people have gone into, rather I wish to go over Tippy and Key's behavior towards me in the months leading up to the incident. Think of this story as more of an unspoken prologue to the Cloak and Dagger spiel, if you will. If you want more in-depth looks as to what exactly ended up happening, I'll provide links to videos made by Doodletones and Heat and Mitsuru outlining the series of events from July 30th to today. Please give them, as well as Lio Convoy, any support you can. They've been through a lot to get everything documented and to make sure the victims get the support that they deserve. With that said, I'll start with the part of the pair who had less involvement in disrespecting me. Tippy. If any of you don't remember, there was an incident in the middle of June regarding the commentary I made on Bumbles McFumbles. Essentially, what it amounted to was that I had sent the script to some people to look over it, with Doodletones being one such person. However, instead of taking the criticisms into account, like what showing off scripts is meant to accomplish, I had taken to a server she and I were both in to complain about her comments, as they came off as half-hearted to me. Like she rambled on to me about issues she made up in the middle of the morning. Spoiler alert, no! And sure enough, when I put out the finished product, Doodle took to calling out my behavior in a commentary of her own. I, to be honest, did not take the initial response too well. It was the first time anybody had commented on me in years, and for such a video to have the baggage it did, well, I wasn't expecting things to turn out this way. I'll admit, I was flustered. I didn't know how to respond to the situation, so I went to Tippy's DMs to try and air out my thoughts so I could prepare to speak with her. Somehow, Doodletones got word of this and chewed me out in our DMs regarding this. I wasn't prepared to speak with her, and I don't think she was prepared to speak with me as well, so to have her coming out to me while I was vulnerable as I was, well, it wasn't pleasant, to put it lightly. Now, I don't have explicit proof of how Doodle caught word of this, but given the evidence shown, I can only come to the conclusion that Tippy herself leaked our conversation. This, on its own, I don't have a huge issue with. I was being pretty irresponsible with my handling of the situation. However, the issue comes when you compare it to Tippy's handling of Vigelcio's behavior. So, Tippy, let me get this straight. You're okay with leaking my conversation with you to prepare for talking things out with Doodletones before I was ready, but Vigelcio's endangerment of minors and willing association with V Omega, a known groomer and attempted rapist, isn't worth bringing up to the Cloud Palace? Do you know what a double standard is? If this is how you're going to handle endangering minors, you do not get to be disappointed in me about not speaking with Doodle regarding my Bumbles video. You were still hiding Vigelcio's behaviors when you made that comment on Doodle's video, so how you were able to post it and not feel the slightest bit of dissonance with your own horrendous communication is anybody's guess. That's not even getting into the other ways you've attempted to cover up this entire situation only to have the Streisand effect blow up spectacularly in your face, as Umbris can and has attested to. And thus, we move on to Keyblade Master. His part in throwing me under the bus involves the commentary I had released after my Bumbles video, my commentary on YouTube Dude 2. Keyblade Master had put up a script on my commentary in the Denny server, the one where the incident with my Bumbles video took place, which I and a few others took to examining. I'll leave a link to the script in the description below, but suffice to say, had Keyblade gone through with converting a script into a video the way it was shown, it would have been a strong contender for my worst commentaries of 2023 list I plan to make. Keyblade, ironically, makes a lot of the same blunders I made in the original commentary and my Bumbles video and throws them back at me as he resorts to the least charitable conclusions regarding my commentary on numerous occasions, disregards, or at least ignores, most of the complaints thrown in his script, don't think I didn't catch how you doubled down on your point against my what the fart quip, and overall fails to examine my commentary in a civil light. Like, in terms of proofreading, I can understand you being wary of my points. I was the subject of the video after all, which I even acknowledged. However, it wasn't just me you apparently brushed off with your arguments. You also ignored Stag, Toganium, and Fractured Light, not even trying to provide your own input if you disagreed with them, and only making minor edits at most when you did agree. Meanwhile, easily the most egregious case of this hostility towards me is the running gag he throws in where he jokes about me getting my limbs dislodged whenever I made an especially bad point. Like, Keyblade, did you not see Doodletones' commentary on Shadowruff? What you're doing here is no different from the constant violent media clips he threw out to attack Emo. They were tasteless and unpleasant back then, and they're just as bad here. At the time, though, while I did still call you out on your quips, ultimately, if you really wanted to, I would have just dismissed them as you trying, albeit failing, to get in some edgy humor in your video. However, in the wake of you blurting out a death wish against Ellie Momeli, this time completely unironically, yeah, your attacks against me come off as a lot more ill-intentioned in hindsight! I remember comparing your immature reaction to Tippy's backlash and the ensuing descent to my Helioptile OC Arum, a delusional and bloodthirsty villain who antagonizes everybody she comes across and generally ends up being a major nuisance whenever she pops up, to say nothing of her more vile actions. So, yeah, not someone you want to have parallels drawn towards. The fact you doubled down on trying to yell where you thought nobody would be able to hurt you just shows how much of a coward you are. I know Doodletones would have been willing to go easier on you if you came up to her and took accountability for your actions, given how the tensions between her and myself went. I apologized for my infraction against her, and we agreed to hash out our differences. Even ignoring this situation, I can think of plenty of examples of people who used to be ostracized from the SEC in the past, only to clean up their acts and become more amicable towards the community as a whole. Toganium, Emo's World, Destroyer Shy, heck, even Doodletones and myself. What's your excuse? Honestly, consider yourself lucky you were tuned out before you got the chance to adapt your script into video form, because if you put it out in the manner shown in your document, the SEC would have dogpiled it to heck and back after your behaviors came to light. As for my overall thoughts, I, like the vast majority of creators and viewers on this platform, have had a number of creators I used to look up to, only to lose my respect through things ranging from being overall unpleasant to watch, to being outed for appallingly gross behavior. Who is this Git, Mangs, and Ray Kohai just off the top of my head. However, whereas Git, Mangs, and to a lesser extent Ray were all people I understood had a more creator-viewer relation with me and presumably didn't mind one of their many subs jumping ship down the road, Key and Tiffy, you two were people I had considered close friends for the better part of half a decade. So, to see you two, as well as Vigelcio, shoot yourselves in the foot so many times and in such frustrating ways is, well, heartbreaking, for lack of a better word. Tippy, I had a lot of fun memories of being your friend. I remember cameoing in you and Keyblade's commentary on Starlight Let's Player, and while my role in that video may be uncomfortable in hindsight, at the time, I enjoyed being a part of it, even if only a minor one. I remember gifting you Nights into Dreams on Steam a while back. While I don't remember the exact occasion, I do recall you tweeting about how happy you were to be gifted it. I hope you're enjoying your present, because I certainly won't be giving you anything more after what came out these past few months. Lastly, at the start of the year, I even came to you to commission artwork of a character I was playing in a Pokemon RP I was in. I was really happy that the offer went through, and even now, separating the art from the artist, I'd still say you did a pretty good job with your drawing, all things considered. Still, I can say with certainty your work won't be showing itself in the server from here on out. It was fun while it lasted, I guess. Keyblade Master, at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if you always secretly hated me since you were first made aware of me back in 2017. I remember you always used pictures of Larvesta as strawmans, or otherwise took shots at me where they didn't apply to my work back in the day, with the first instance I can think of being your video on Pigeon. Essentially, I was the Richard Nixon to your Matt Groening during the beginnings of our commentary careers. And sure, I was an overly sensitive teen who couldn't comprehend anyone making a good response to me, but the way you went about making me into your own punching bag, especially given recent events, is just pathetic. At the time, I thought that after I showed signs of improving, you let the constant jokes at my expense be water under the bridge, an artifact of a time when I was one of the most hated people in the community, and standards of edgy to offensive humor weren't quite as strict as they are today. However, here we are now. Not only did you plan to make a spite-filled and repulsive response to one of my latest commentaries, with parts that age especially poorly given what was uncovered since your script was first shown, but you went the extra mile by telling someone who had nearly committed suicide that they should kill themselves, and try to hide it from everyone who was willing to rat you out instead of taking responsibility and working to better yourself. Honestly, with this in mind, this just puts a lot of your more concerning antics from the past in a whole new light. Your involvement with the Cloud Palace's reviled commentary on the Cam Project, the co-op you made with Sarah Dust on Arkham Knight Rider where you tried to dismiss certain events that got you into hot water, your provocative potshot against Destroyer Shy's group. With your antagonizing attitude now in mind, yeah, no wonder you got yourself into trouble as often as you did. Heck, for a moment, I thought you might have even been OG Scout in disguise. In any case, I can't say I'm sad to see you go, as much as it would have broken past me's heart to learn about how cowardly you really are. Finally, Vigelcio. I know I didn't have a tangent dedicated to him specifically, but seeing as how he's the less talked about of the three overall, I'd like to dedicate some final words to him as well. And oh boy, do I have a lot to say. Back when I first met you circa early 2019, you seemed like a very friendly person. It was nice having a beacon of hope back then while the Omega was manipulating a good chunk of people to turn against the SEC for what were ultimately petty reasons. I remember you and I were going to do a collab back in the day on Ilgo's Amiibo video, and though I wanted to reach out to you in the years that followed, I wasn't able to get to you directly to see if you still wanted to do that video. Ultimately, I decided to convert my commentary on Ilgo into a solo video in your honor, so to see you turn out to be exactly the same kind of gross pile of sludge as the Omega these past few years, it just hurts. Let it be known that if I were made aware of your connections with V, I would not have tried getting in touch with you, and the IlgoCom would almost certainly have been scrapped. It's lucky to have only gotten a disclaimer added to it in the comments at this point. If any of you think I made this statement for the sake of my own satisfaction, believe me, I didn't. This video was very painful for me to get together, to put it lightly. Finally, to wrap up, I guess I'll quickly go over the remaining parties involved in concealing Vigilcio's connection to V. Mav Station and Dulsmic, while still culpable in the grand scheme of things and definitely have some growing to do, I am willing to believe are capable of putting in the effort to better themselves. That said, if they're expecting me to become their own Morphos or Musically, all that will prove is that they don't have as much integrity as I thought they did. Neko Shadows, on the other hand, is in a bit of a weird spot given that she's both a perpetrator and a victim at the same time, as oxymoronic as that sounds. But to be brief, while I do pity Neko for the way Keith threw her away out of the blue, I am still more wary of her than Doll and Mav, if only for her part in attempting to silence Umbris. In any case, I've severed ties with Key, Tippy, Vigilcio, and everyone else regarding the situation. So, yeah, that's my statement out of the way. Here's to hoping I won't have to make another one of these depressing soapbox speeches ever again. But in the meantime, I'm gonna get back to videos I'm more excited about getting out. I guess I'll see you then.